2020 hindsight is perfect. But did you know we could return to that past wisdom and pick up where we left off? Welcome to part two of viewing past wisdom through the lens of today. We'll expand on that topic as we bring in pyramid power. That's right. So tune in to learn more. I want to welcome you back. My name is Candace Sanderson. And today I am sharing part two. It's a carryover from the last episode. As I reveal some of these older messages from my guides, I hope that you will be able to gain from what I have learned directly from the messengers. I hope this will help you on your spiritual path. We left off last time with the message that introduced Lily, a jaguar. We ended that episode with this paragraph. Let me read it. There is an awareness that the new energies have something to do with animal communication. There is a new pathway being generated. There is the vision of a large black jungle cat making its path in a very dense jungle. The large velvet paws barely making a dent in the thick foliage. Oh yes, this is the power animal that she knows of as Lily, a black panther, a jaguar. She is the guide for this set of energies. As a reminder, this was the 22nd message I had received in the 2 months since I had begun channeling. And in this communication, the first messenger signed off. Immediately, another one came in, and that one introduced Lily, who then became the third messenger in just a matter of seconds. Now, in real time, as I received this in October of 2013, I did not realize there were 3 messengers. I was still new at this to have that, kind of sensitivity to pick up on that. The message and the descriptive language, though, brought me to an experience that I had way back in 2006. Let me fill in the backstory about Lily. In 2006, I attended a meditation where we met our power animal, and that's a guide that is in animal form. A black jaguar came to me during this meditation, and then shortly thereafter, I had some dreams and a vision that involved this jungle cat. In the first event, I saw a jaguar running through a dense jungle, and I was following her. I had documented this in so much detail in my journal back in 2006, but even today, I can still put myself back in that place right now, as I did in 2013 with this message. I can see it in full detail. So, in other words, it is permanently bookmarked. It is part of my history, and I can access it at any time. I'm in a jungle setting, and I can feel the humidity. The vegetation is so dense that it blocks any kind of breeze there is. There are thick, heavy vines climbing all around me. It's daytime, but when you look up, the canopy of the jungle is so thick that only rarely do I see patches of light from the sun. There is a combination of decaying wood in the soil, as well as these very different, beautiful smells of exotic flowers. But when you combine them, it gave kind of a pungent quality to the damp, hot air. There's a very narrow path, and I'm running behind a beautiful, dark jaguar. Now, I'm not chasing the cat, but instead she is leading the way, and I'm following her as she weaves through these narrow jungle passages with this beautiful ease and grace. I look down and it's me, but it's not me. I am in the body of a man running behind this magnificent animal. I know this is a vision. It's something in my internal landscape, but the experience is so real. It's more real than 3D. I am there. And for reasons I cannot explain, I knew then, just as I re experience this now, that I am in a time and place from long ago. Suddenly, my vision shifts. It's like swinging a camera and the lens sees something different. It's the same thing, but from a different perspective, a different point of view. Although everything is very detailed, I'm confused. I'm following the cat, yet now I see myself as an indigenous man running behind this magnificent animal. I have become the observer, but it's more than that. I am both the man and the observer. Is this what people call bilocation? I don't know, but I do know that I cannot give much thought to that now. Now is not the time to analyze what's going on. It's go with the flow when you're in these situations. Otherwise, you lose connection, you lose contact. You don't stop to judge the information. It's learning to follow my initial message I had about a flower being a flower of energy. If we let that energy flow, we'll blossom. So I follow that advice. All of my senses are heightened. And without a doubt, I know I am really in that jungle. Suddenly, there's a break in the jungle, and we burst through this opening into a cleared area. I immediately stop to catch my breath, and I look around. There is so much activity. I see children and adolescents playing a game, and they're using a shuttlecock, which is like a feather ball. And they have these paddles that are hand carved, very ornate, and they're using a small round object with a beautiful red feather sticking out of it. I have no idea what this object is. Is it a large seed, a shell, a rock? Did they make this from clay that they hardened in the sun or in fire? I have no idea. Then my vision fades and I find myself back in 3D. Shortly after that experience in 2006, I had a dream that provided even more detail. I remembered the day because it was my birthday, December 21st. I woke, looked at the clock, and it was 3:15. I remembered the time because that's precisely when I was born. I have a twin sister who was born 3 minutes later at 3:18. 3:15, but that's way too early to get up. So I tried to go back to sleep. I drifted in that magical space between dreaming and wakefulness when I had this next dream. I used the term dream with hesitation because I was not asleep, and it was much more substantial than even a lucid dream. This was a vision. But back then in 2006, the thought of this being a vision never entered my mind. This was years before I began channeling. I knew this was interesting and it was quite fascinating, but I really didn't know what it was. But let me share. This experience, extremely vivid, I kept seeing a jaguar walk back and forth across my field of vision. And then I saw a scene that was directly out of the movie, the children's movie, Peter Pan. Do you remember that part where he's in a canoe with Tiger Lily, the indigenous person who was helping him? Now, here's the crazy thing. That picture with Tiger Lily and Peter Pan in the canoe, that was in a cartoon format directly from the animated movie. But that did not detract from how real it was. I was aware of myself watching both Peter Pan and Tiger Lily rowing a canoe while this lifelike vision of a jaguar continued to cross my line of sight. I thought, what is this? I had no idea, but I was fascinated. I was so curious. Then I had an aha moment as I thought, Tiger Lily. That's the connection. Her name, that's it. And aloud in the dream or vision or whatever it was, I said, Tiger Lily. As those words left my mouth, the jaguar stopped in her tracks. She turned and looked directly at me. Then I said, Lily? Your name is Lily? When I did, she galloped straight toward me. When she reached me, she reared up on her hind legs and she threw her huge, velvety paws on my shoulders. With the weight of her body on me, I struggled to keep standing. Then she licked my face, and I felt that sandpaper wetness of her tongue. It was so unbelievably vivid and tactile. So that's the backstory on how I met this magnificent jaguar, my power animal, a guide in animal form, and how I learned of her name, Lily. Lily had returned and was introduced as the guide for this set of energies in this October 2013 experience. Lily, as an animal, obviously did not have the language that my other messengers used. As I had just experienced, she would guide me through other means, through the experience of visions, instead of those neat, precise words that I could dictate into my recording app. And how experiential was this connection? In many respects, it was more real than 3D. Let me stop and share a few things. One purpose of these episodes is to demonstrate how my psychic abilities unfolded, how the messengers taught me to view my world differently. And by sharing that, I'm hoping it might offer you some suggestions on how your spiritual journey could open. With that, let me call your attention to a couple things I experienced in these encounters: knowing and bookmarking. As that detail of Lily running through the jungle unfolded, I had not experienced what I now call a knowing. Until then, that is. A knowing is when something occurs and you automatically know things about it. You don't know how you know or how you receive the information, but you know in your heart that it is true. I now realize that knowing is another type of psychic ability. It's probably the most powerful of all of these abilities, but it is the easiest to discount. Because we cannot trace the source of the knowing like you can in a message or a vision, we often don't think of this as an intuitive skill. We don't trust it. We think we've made this up. As this vision occurred in 2013, my knowing was that I had tapped into a past life. And this past life as the indigenous man was full of connections to the stars and star energy. By this time, 2 months into my channeling, I had already received information from star systems, including Chiron and Alpha Centauri. I then had another knowing. I realized I could learn to feel for this pathway, and both Lily and the indigenous guide would bring me back to this place. When I read that in my journal this week, I couldn't help but smile because that was exactly what had happened. The messengers later referred to this skill as bookmarking, something I mentioned in the last episode. But let me expand on bookmarking now. Over time, I've come to realize how significant bookmarking is, but I would have never guessed back in 2013 when I had this message that 10 years later, this year, 2023, I would have proof. Yes, proof that bookmarking does indeed exist. Check out my YouTube episode called Trust But Verify. How Mind Mirror Verifies Out-of-Body Adventures. I posted this on March 13th, 2023. I will put a link to the podcast in the description below, but if you go to my YouTube channel, you'll find it under the Consciousness series in the playlist tab at the top of my page. In that video, I highlighted my experience at Monroe Institute's Discovery Program that I attended in February of this year. During our 6 days on campus, we were part of the Institute's research to validate different states of expanded consciousness using an EEG monitoring system called Mind Mirror. This program was led by Judith Pennington from IAM, the Institute for the Awakened Mind. This is the only long-term, large-scale EEG monitored study of psychic phenomena conducted anywhere in the world. As meditators, each morning we lined up to have EEG electrodes glued to our heads. Then we snuggled into zero-gravity chairs. We put on our headphones so we could listen to the upcoming meditations. This was real-time EEG monitoring of our brainwave changes during the meditations. The results were displayed on monitors as these beautiful, moving, dynamic, color-coded graphs that tracked our brainwaves in real time. In the background, you'll see an example of my brainwave states during that study. I love this scientific validation of expanded states of awareness. If a participant had an out-of-body experience, for example, those real-time changes were displayed on the monitors. Here's where the proof of bookmarking comes in. Judith Pennington talked to the group about something she calls landmarks. She said when we reached a significantly altered state, whether it's connecting with cosmic consciousness or maybe an out-of-body experience while meditating, she would see a very specific brainwave pattern corresponding to each of those altered states. Think of the significance of this. It's something tangible. It's something that she saw. You don't have to believe it. The proof is displayed by those beautiful, color-coded moving graphs on the computer monitor. Judith told us how we could go back and identify what was occurring when we were in those altered states. In other words, we were using the details of the experience to landmark the event, allowing us to return to that previous state of expansion. As Judith described this to our group, I found myself nodding and smiling. Aha, that is exactly what the messengers call a bookmark. The scientist in me silently cheered because I had a unique opportunity. Could I prove the hypothesis that we could return to a specific 5D experience through landmarking or bookmarking? Now's my chance, so here is what I did. During the next meditation, I began the exercise with a bookmark from a previous meditation. When I met with Judith afterwards to debrief, she showed me what I was looking for, that I had begun the meditation with the brainwave pattern that showed I was in an out-of-body state. That's when I told her that I had used a landmark, a bookmark, to begin the meditation. And that bookmark had become my launch pad for the exercise. Think about that. Why begin a new meditation behind the start line again instead of closer to the finish line? We don't have to begin at ground zero. And now I had proof that bookmarking, that setting a landmark, indeed works. I had validation and verification through EEG monitoring that proved we could return to those very same set of frequencies. I love this. The world is beginning to acknowledge these connections, and they are attempting to view them through the lens of science. Okay, now let's return to the last communication when I realized I could feel for the energy path and that both Lily and the indigenous guide would bring me back to this place. That is bookmarking. And it works just like dropping a pin in the 5D, just like with GPS in the 3D. Here's a hint. When you have a 5D connection that feels strong, important, that's significant, as it happens, pause, stop, and look around. Use those images, what you see, what you hear, what you feel, what you know. Use those as the basis for your bookmark so you can return at will. Bookmarking demystifies the mystical, allowing us to view these other dimensional spaces through the lens of energy, frequencies, and vibrations. How powerful this is. My experience of meandering through the jungle behind Lily was so profound. I easily slipped back into that 2006 bookmark while I was in 2013. I was on a learning curve. I can now see how the messengers have been providing me with tools that I need, even at this very early stage of my opening, just 2 months. In a previous message, my guides had talked about the brain being a radio tuner. And so now I was learning to do that, to fine tune my brain, my antenna, that apparatus that receives these very often subtle frequencies. The messengers told me that the brain automatically knows how to do this. After all, that is how it functions. I just needed to step out of the way, my ego, that is, and let the brain do its job. By allowing all of my senses to return to where I was during the altered state, bookmarking would work. That is the how. Like priming a pump, you jumpstart the process to start it working. Now, I'd like to bring this to a meditative experience and demonstrate how it could work for you. Can you think of a specific event when you were meditating or maybe even dreaming when something significant happened? You met with the deceased loved one. You found yourself with ascended masters. You traveled back in time, whatever it was. Let me show you how that could work. First, the fact that you can recall something significant suggests that it is already bookmarked. So let's see what you can do from here. I'll give an example. Many years ago, I had a lucid dream combined with a visitation where I met my mother, who is in spirit. The dream was so detailed. I can close my eyes and put myself back there now. That's how bookmarking works. I see the elevator I was in and how those doors opened, and I stepped out and looked around. I see my mother sitting on the padded bench in this large, comfortable, dimly lit waiting room. And that can be my bookmark, my landmark, stepping out of the elevator and looking around. I can go to my mom and take a seat next to her. Or maybe I want to explore deeper into this room, whatever. It's a launching pad. I can take control. If I want to have a conversation with my mom, I can prime the pump by asking her questions. If there's no response, I can start pretending that she responds. Yes, I'm giving permission to pretend. It's more than that. I'm encouraging you to do so. When you pretend, you're moving the energy, you're encouraging that flow. And for the next few minutes, I will probably think I'm making this up until my mom introduces a topic or she says something that I know is not from me. And from that point on, I know that I'm fully connected and I start paying very close attention. This is how bookmarking can work. Think, pretend, make it up, imagine it, be a kid. Don't judge, just go with the flow. All those things work. It's allowing it to occur. But first, remember, it's okay to prime the pump. Okay, I've had a lot of sidebars, but I hope those conversations will bring my experiences into an easy to duplicate practice for you. But now let's get back to my journal. I've had the experience with Lily and the indigenous man. Now another messenger takes over. During this ancient lifetime, the civilization was advanced, yet they realized there was a problem with Mother Earth and they needed to leave. They knew their roots were from the stars and it would soon be time for them to return to the stars. They have a sister group in Mesopotamia that is getting ready for the same journey. Mesopotamia. Today, that area covers parts of Syria, Turkey, and Iraq. As the messenger spoke these words, I knew they were true. And within seconds, once again, I dropped into the vision with Lily and I looked around. Okay, see what happened? I did not intentionally do this, but now I know I can and that you can. But that jungle bookmark just took me back to that time and place the messengers were referring to. And once I landed, that bookmark launched me into more 5D explorations. Again, I didn't do it intentionally, but I was in that state of allowing, and that flow of energy worked. It brought me there. In my journal, I described in great detail what I had seen. These people had built tall pyramids that are flat on top, step pyramids. And I knew those pyramids had something to do with teleportation. There was a teleportation system that these people had perfected. On the flat top of the pyramid, there was a stream of energy that connected three portals to the star system from which they came and would return. One site connected to the stars from Mesoamerica, another one from, as the messenger said, the Middle East, Mesopotamia, and the third somewhere in France. This is an example of knowing. I can't identify how I knew or why I knew, I just knew. There was so much excitement in the air as this entire tribe that I'm seeing in Mesoamerica will return home to their star system. The messenger then told me that I was part of this group, and that's why I've been able to connect with the star system called Chiron and Alpha Centauri. And that's from an earlier message a couple months before. I look around and I see a crowd of people who are celebrating big time. They're dancing, they're playing, they're chanting. They are all doing this to raise the energy levels as they plan to leave this planet and return home to the stars. They are fully aware that they have sister tribes doing the same thing across the globe. This group energy for the teleportation is channeled through the earth. It then goes upward toward a star system. When those group energies connect across the globe, the transformation will be complete. And then those tribal members will ascend as a group to return to their home in the stars. The messenger said that these tribes had originally come to Earth to experience a different set of energies, but they had come from a planet that was dying and they needed another place to survive. But their mission on Earth was through, it was complete. and it was time for them to return to a star system where they would find a new home. There were thousands who left all at once, and when they did that, they also told me, the messengers told me, that many of these that left have incarnated now in this lifetime, including me. There are more people now on earth that feel this very strong connection to the stars. This is the end of the message, and there is so much to unpack from this. In my first book, The Reluctant Messenger, I shared a vision where I saw a shaman standing on top of a step pyramid, that flat top pyramid, and I knew that there were three across the planet, and they pointed their staffs into the sky. And on top of each staff, they had a huge quartz crystal, and quartz crystals, we know, will amplify energy. I saw streams of energy that looked like lightning shoot into the sky. And where those three streams met, there was a holograph of a pyramid that appeared. And I immediately had this knowing that the pyramid was for teleportation. But I had absolutely no recollection of this vision that I just shared with you. I did not remember it. Remember, for this series, I'm going back and using messages that I did not cover in any of my books. And like this message, it had been years since I had read it. But this 2013 message added more detail to what I had reported in the book. The next day, after this 2013 message, the word Teotihuacan came to mind. And I knew, there's that knowing cropping up again, I knew that I had been there in a past life in Mesoamerica. I looked it up, and Teotihuacan, once I figured out how to spell it, was indeed in Mesoamerica. And guess what else I found? I found that they did indeed have pyramids. And another aha moment, their main pyramids were the Pyramid of the Sun and the Pyramid of the Moon. Interesting, there's that star connection. Pyramid of the Sun, our sun is a star. And having those pyramids and the names of them validated so much for me. But those pyramids were step pyramids, those flat top pyramids that I'd seen in the vision. Let me give you another aside. I talked to my son who lives in Nashville and told him about this and how I discovered Teotihuacan and these flat top pyramids. And he said, I know. I've seen it. And I thought, oh my gosh, my son also has intuitive skills. He also has visions. And I said, you saw it? What do you mean? And then I had to laugh. He explained about a show called Ancient Aliens, where they highlight Teotihuacan and these pyramids, the Pyramid of the Sun, the Pyramid of the Moon, and how they were used for teleportation. Back then, I had never heard of Ancient Aliens. Now, after that, my son bought me the first 6 seasons, I think, DVDs of Ancient Aliens, and I was able to watch those. And I realized, oh my gosh, what so many things they talked about in Ancient Aliens I had experienced. But I was so glad that I was unaware of that show, or otherwise I would have thought that this information came into me because it was in my memory. Is going back and looking at my older posts, it gives me a new perspective. It shows me how much I've learned from the messengers, and they taught me little by little to recognize and to experience their messages from the 5D. So I want to thank you for joining me on this trip down memory lane. Remember to use your heart to guide you every day. Use kind words as you share with others. So until next time, goodbye.